Everything just changed in Tier 1 League of Legends. Yesterday, Riot announced a series of sweeping changes, including a new international tournament, regions in Asia merging together, and the LCS forming a Pan-Americas Conference League with Latin America and Brazil. Some have welcomed the changes as necessary for the future of LoL esports in the Americas, but there are many angry voices too. Here's all the details. Alright, no time to waste on this one, so let's just dive in. Yesterday, Riot announced a new model for a Pan-Americas League across North and South America, similar to Valorant's VCT Americas, which will be split into a Northern Conference made up of 6 existing LCS teams, 1 existing Latin American team, as the Latin American region is being dissolved, and 1 guest team, as well as a Southern Conference made up of existing CBLOL teams from Brazil, and similar slots for a Latin American and guest team. That guest team slot is not a guaranteed spot in either conference league and would be subject to relegation to or promotion from the respective Tier 2 systems in an annual competition. They also announced a restructuring of the international calendar, which would see all regions playing 3 splits and beginning their year with a new international tournament and accompanying split that would feature Fearless Draft. Format featured at the start of this month in the LPL, and the idea is pretty simple. In a best-of series, a team is not allowed to pick champions that have already been played in the series so far. The hope is to shake things up, force teams to constantly adapt, and for viewers to see more variety in the champion scene in pro play. Riot also announced the formation of a new Asia-Pacific region that will bring together the top 8 teams from Vietnam, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Macau, Japan, Oceania, and the rest of Southeast Asia into a single unified league. Coming back to the Americas, what does this mean for the LCS? The LCS and CBLOL fans have been used to watching regular season games in LA and Sao Paulo respectively for over a decade now. So how will this thing actually work? Well, Riot says that in the first split of a given year, the teams will play in their respective conferences with the top performers facing off against each other to qualify as the sole representative for the Americas region at the new global tournament to be held every March. In Split 2, the top team from each conference would represent the Americas at MSI, which is going to move to slightly later in the calendar. And for Split 3, there would be an Americas Regional Championship to determine which 3 teams would advance to Worlds, with at least 1 team from each conference represented. And again, there's that guest slot reserved for a former Tier 2 team that would have to fight other Tier 2 teams in a promotion relegation tournament every year in order to keep their spot in those Tier 1 conferences. Now, some of you eager-eared viewers may have noticed that both conferences will only feature 6 existing teams from the LCS and CBLOL leagues, despite them currently having 8 and 10 teams respectively. This has already led to some fierce speculation about which LCS teams will be exiting the scene if the new format was to go ahead, with concern from fans that already saw the league drop from 10 to 8 teams earlier this year. But Team Liquid owner Steve Aronset made the argument on Hotline League yesterday that the LCS might benefit from a smaller league.
Can we lose a few more teams? I think we'll be fine. I want organizations and companies that are invested for the future of this, and there are some really good management, there's some really good companies that invest in content and players and competition and all this stuff, and there's those that don't, and I want to be surrounded by people that give a shit.
There's been many discussions over the years about whether the LCS's current franchise model has been a good thing overall. There's been criticism that it's fostered a culture of bloated wages, a lack of competition, and a reliance on foreign talent at the expense of domestic development, coupled with stagnating viewership in recent years, and there was a sense that the LCS was, in a word, unsustainable. And for Riot, they're hoping this new system will address some of that. They said there are currently too many teams in certain leagues to support sustainability, and that by reducing the number, they hope to focus support from the global revenue pool to fewer teams and thereby increase the revenue per team. They also hope that fewer teams will lead to a higher concentration of player talent, a more streamlined ecosystem, and ultimately higher quality matches. Riot have also said they hope the introduction of this guest slot slot for Tier 2 teams to reach Tier 1 will give players another path to top-level professional play. The jury might still be out on that one given it is currently just a single slot, but it's something. Now there's always going to be winners and losers and trade-offs whenever a shake-up or streamlining of this magnitude occurs. Some are mourning the liquidation of the Latin American League, as well as an outcry for Asia's LJL, PCS and VCS leagues, which some feel have been completely wiped out. And there's already been a lot of pushback from some in the Brazilian scene who feel that merging struggling regions with their thriving scene will negatively impact their region. Let's not forget, the CBLOL has been smashing viewership records recently. In April, its Spring Split Grand Finals pulled in almost 460,000 peak concurrent viewers. The LCS managed 246,000 for its equivalent final, which in fairness was a slight improvement on last summer, but it's easy to see why some Brazilian fans may feel they've had their wings clipped a bit with this merger when they were about to take off. The CBLOL is also a franchise league of 10 teams, 4 of which are about to lose their places at the top in order to create this new balanced Pan-American project. In fact, it would be an understatement to say that a lot of Brazilian fans are a bit upset, with some of them proclaiming the LCS is not a legitimate league. I suspect that if this merger does go ahead, Brazilian contention with it will be a continued sticking point for Riot. Some LCS fans may be happy to merge with a league that has shown consistent growth in recent years, such vibrant tournaments, such passionate fans, and as LS pointed out to fans on both sides of the debate, a rising tide raises all ships. Regions may need to come together like this to become greater than the sum of their parts. But others feel the LCS might not necessarily have needed this, they just needed more time under the new leadership of Mark Z.
The thing that annoys me is LCS performs internationally almost better than Europe for the first time in years by beating us twice. And LCS viewership is slowly on the up. Mark Z was cooking, yeah? Give him time. He's only had a few, like half a year. Give him time, let him cook. You give him 6 months and now what? You've just changed the entire system?
Riot titled the article in which they announced these changes, "Building Towards a Brighter Future." Now that may very well happen. It's early days and nobody really knows how something as monumental as this is gonna pan out. But the explosive reactions from some fans whose regions have now vanished, or from fans who feel their league will come out of this worse, has maybe not been the bright beginning Riot were hoping for. Only time will tell if this monumental shift in the structure of LoL esports in the Americas will fulfill that promised vision.